2 of the 6 high school counselors, and we're doing our, basically it's the college application process. We are videotaping this tonight. We are the lucky ones that get to be videoed. So if you have a question, we'll answer those questions. I'll probably repeat the questions so it can be heard and seen later. All right. So just to review what you were given tonight, there's some handouts, and folks who are coming in now, we'll get those in a minute. So you have a pink calendar of events, a white sheet applying for admission, purple is college fair information, and then finally we have a survey we're asking you all to complete just for us to help us to collect some data and improve our programs. So let's start with the calendar of events. So here we are, September 14th already. And Amy, did you send an email to your seniors to get together? Okay. So we're in the process of sending an email out to our students to invite them in to meet with us individually. So some counselors have sent it out, others are in the process of doing that. So we're all in basically the same time frame. So if your child didn't get that email, that's okay. It's coming.
Just waiting for tonight.
Yeah, she was waiting for tonight. That's fine. So anyway, so if might want to check with your child to make sure. Okay, did you get the email? You know, did you contact your counselor? You got to go in and see them so they can review things with you. So we're going to be doing that, and that doesn't all happen September 14th or next week. You know, it's a series of days. We have to get through anywhere from 60 to 65 seniors. So, which we do. We do a good job of getting through all that information. Upcoming, we have those that college essay workshop before the college fair. That's very helpful, very useful, and that's that purple sheet there. So there's 2 different college fairs coming up. The one is here at the high school. We usually have one in the fall, and we also have one in the spring. That won't be as important to you because you'll have basically decided where you're going to go to college. The one at Hudson Valley is, again, another good one to go to. So there's a lot of overlap of colleges, but there might be some differences too. So if you can't come to the one here, definitely go to the one at Hudson Valley or vice versa. Make sure you plan on. It's a great way to talk to admissions people. Open house you're going to come to, hopefully meet teachers, get that kind of information. There's the financial aid program for students and parents. We're going to be hosting that. That's information for the FAFSA, free application for federal student aid for students and families who wish to seek financial aid. And then they also go over the CSS profile. It's another financial aid form that some colleges use or require. All colleges require the FAFSA, and that's more detailed information. And we also will be handing a packet to your to each student with information that they can bring home that's got a little bit more detail than what we're giving you tonight. And we'll show you also the website where there's links, and so it's easy to get to with that. Paper's nice, but it's nice to go to a website too. We have a instant admit day, October 27th. Those are the colleges that are listed there. Anything that's underlined on this sheet will provide a link online. So we're guiding students through when we get together with them for those individual conferences. If they wish to apply to any of those colleges, we'll assist them with that. And this is a nice opportunity for students to meet with college admissions counselors and find out, did I get accepted on that day? And if they do, then it's kind of nice to walk away October 27th knowing that they got accepted. So, and there's multiple schools that students can apply to. We have a nice program where we have, is it virtual or hybrid, or we don't know yet, but we're going to offer a completing the FAFSA workshop. We've done this in the past. We have financial aid professionals in our community who come to the high school typically. Sometimes we're not sure if it's virtual this year, but either way, we're going to lean on those people to provide assistance to our parents and students if they have any questions, with filling out the FAFSA. Another great resource of filling out the FAFSA is any colleges that your child's applying to. Also, Hudson Valley Community College is a great resource. So even if a student's not going to be applying or attending Hudson Valley, they're really good about helping families with completing the FAFSA. What else do we have? Scholarship information. You don't have to wait till January. We just kind of stick it in there. We expect students and families to check out scholarship information as often as they want. And this could be really helpful in, knocking down the price of college tuition and expenses. Yes, we're going to take a detour off our little calendar of events, and we're going to show you how to get to the high school website. So you're going to get to, this is the district website. You're going to click on the high school website here. And you'll be scrolling down to the bottom, trying, and you get to where it says the Counseling Center. That's our department. Maybe. Okay, and then you're going to click on where it's highlighted in purple, blue there. Click there, visit the Guilderland High School Counseling Department. And so here we have basically all the stuff that we're going to hand to students, or some of the stuff that we've given to you tonight is all posted on the website. Sometimes it's nice to have paper, but what's great about the website is there's all these links. So if you have to get to something, so here we are with the calendar of events. It's not pink, or is it pink? Will it show up pink? It's fine if it's not, we know what it is. And you can see that there's the links that are embedded in. So, so that's where that is. Later in the year, you can see we do questionnaires and surveys at that time of the year in May, where students and families have decided, okay, my child's going to college X or college Y, and we get that information because eventually our high school is sending out the final transcript to the college that they've committed to. I'm sorry? Okay. So we're just clicking on a link just to kind of show you how we got connected. So there was under the Instant Admit Day, Siena was one of the colleges, so Amy just clicked on that and it gets you right to the Siena website, and that's the application that the student would fill out with us when we get together, because that's if they want to do the Instant Admit. If they don't even want to do the Instant Admit, they just want to apply to Siena, they can complete this application. So there's a variety of things that we can do with that.
Most of the colleges during COVID moved to online applications, so even when we used to have paper applications for kids to fill out, we don't have that anymore. So we tried to put the links for the Instant Admit Day right in here to make it easier for kids to access those applications. When we meet with them, we will help them with that if they need help. So don't feel like, oh, I have to keep track of all of this and do all of this on my own. We will help them. That's what we're there for.
Graduation, you want to put that in your calendar, save the date. You could send that even out now to friends and family who you want to invite to attend. On the bottom, you can see that there's fall test dates, and you can always refer to SAT website is the College Board website. For ACT tests, there's the actstudent.org website. But you can notice with the ACT, these are not offered at Guilderland. So if your child wishes to take an ACT, I would encourage them to do so. You just have to recognize that it would have to be at a different high school. And there's several local ones that offer that. So we had, was it the August or September? Which one? September. Did we have the September?
September ACT and August SAT.
There you go. So. Okay. So that's the calendar of events. All right, what are we going to next, Amy?
We're going to go to the college application information online because we want you to be able to see where everything that we're talking about is, because we're giving a lot of information and we don't expect you to be able to retain it all. So we want you to be able to go back and access everything that we're talking about.
And if anybody has any questions along the way, we're happy to answer. So don't, feel free to ask. All right, so back on that high school website, the Counseling Center website, we're scrolling down and applying for admission. So this is kind of like our lesson plan. You have the paper out there, but it's nice, like Amy said, there's the website. So when we meet with students, we have them open up their Naviance account. There's the link there. So typically students are going to open up the Naviance account on their Chromebook. It's already kind of connected that way. They go to what's called single sign-on, and they don't have to worry about a password and all of that. So it's pretty simple. Many of our students, not everybody, but many of our students are going to be creating what's called a common application. So here's the Naviance account there. Now, kids would be signing on with single sign-on. Amy has a pretend student account, so she has to actually use the email and a password. But here's the Naviance site, and this is what kids are looking at when they're meeting with us. And we're focusing primarily on that colleges I'm applying to. So students have thought about things last year over the summer. Now we're switching gears and we're going into colleges that we're applying to. And before I move on, I just want to say this because I probably like 9 out of 10 of the students that I see when we get together to do this, I think Amy will agree, is kids will say, I'm so far behind. I don't know, I didn't do anything yet, I didn't go visit, I didn't do X, I didn't do Y. Basically, wherever you're at, you're right on target. We're gonna get you started and we're gonna get you where you need to go. So don't feel like if you didn't do something, you hear 16 of your other friends who did X, all this other stuff, it's okay. We're gonna get together with students and we're gonna get them going. And if you parents have questions, just connect with us and we're happy to help. Okay, so typically there's a list of colleges on the colleges I'm applying to. First, that banner up there, it's in red. So when we get together with students, like I said, a lot of students are using the Common Application. Not everybody, but a good number of them. So if they're using the Common Application, we're going to set up a Common App account if the student hasn't already done so. And then eventually we're going to match the Common App with the Naviance account. And where it says match accounts up in the right-hand corner, they do that. So the red banner turns from red to green. And that way we know the two are matched and kind of like speaking to each other.
Right, we can't do this and show you because I'm not a real student and I don't have a real Common App account. But with your kids, you'll be able to do this, or we'll do it with them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so some of the things that you're going to see on the Naviance screen right here, you're going to see the name of the colleges, you're going to see the deadline. There's different types of deadlines. We've talked in the past about, you've heard terms like early action, early decision. Hopefully you know the difference. The big difference is early decision is a binding agreement. So it's fine if you make that decision with your child, if they wish to do that, that means they're making a binding agreement with one college. So if they get accepted, that you're committing to going to that one particular college. So if a student applies to 10 colleges and one of them is early decision, they might be finding out, about the same time if they got accepted to all 10, but if they got accepted to that early decision college, then they're agreeing that's where they're going to go. So they would be withdrawing their application from all other colleges. So the difference with early action is there's no binding agreement. So what's nice is you apply early, you find out early without the commitment if you're not ready to do that with an early decision. Does that make sense? Anybody have questions about early decision? Yep.
Do the transcripts for early action, does that include the first quarter of senior year?
So the question is, do the transcripts when a student applies early action or early decision or early deadline, are the first quarter grades on that transcript? So typically no, because first quarter comes out like November something. And if the early action deadline is October 15th, for some southern schools, if it's November 1st, then we're just shy of that time when first quarter grades would go on. So the student would apply, they wouldn't have their first quarter grades on their transcript, and that's not really the case for any student at that point. First quarter grades don't get on the transcript until mid-year. Or we send, what do we send?
We
report?
can send first quarter
Yeah,
grades.
we can send first quarter
Many
grades.
colleges request first quarter grades, even if you're applying under one of those formal early programs. They still say send first quarter grades as soon as they're available.
Mm-hmm.
So I would probably plan on sending first quarter grades. You may not have to, but I would want you to know that that was a possibility.
Yeah. So when we say send first quarter grades, the student's not actually doing that. They would contact their counselor. They say, hey, Mrs. Murphy, can you send my first quarter grades to the following colleges or to all of the colleges that I've applied to? And we will take care of that. It's electronic form that we send out. Yeah.
When you say that you're supposed to submit the transcript counselor recommendation form before the 2 weeks before the application deadline, if someone's doing an early admission and they're going like a goal of October 1st is when I'm going to have everything in, do you want it before that October 1st or before the school's actual deadline?
So the question is, there's a yellow form that we ask students to complete and turn into us so we know what we have to do. So we ask students to give us that at least 2 weeks before the earliest deadline. But let's say a student has their own personal deadline of October 1st. So they would want to give it to us like about this time. This is 2 weeks before October 1st. So now we're not going to have a hissy fit if it comes on the 16th or, you know, the 20th or something. But we want to just kind of buffer the time to plan accordingly. So yeah, that's fine.
But I do want to add, especially when it comes to teacher recommendations, and we do the best in our office also, but student transcripts aren't even ready yet. We can't even get them ready until drop ad is over. So thinking about, oh, I want everything in at least 2 weeks before, the most important thing if a student has that goal is to get all of their information in 2 weeks before. The transcripts will come, the teacher recommendations will come, and some schools even have a later deadline for the school documents as opposed to the student documents. Chances are those admissions people aren't reading applications until the deadline anyway. So while I think it's great for the student to not want to have it weighing over them, it's not as important as they feel like it is to get it in so much before the deadline. We would rather students keep their applications and do a great job with them than rush to get them in and have errors on them or errors in their essays or be incomplete or whatever it is.
One of the things actually that I try to talk about when I meet with my students is this is really a three-part process. So there's the student's application, this is what Amy's kind of talking about. There's the counselor piece, the recommendation, the transcript, other forms that we have to do. And then there's the teacher's letters of recommendation. So the student is kind of managing us. You know, they're kind of like, hey, I need this. This is when I need you to send this here. This is when I need you to send this here. So the student is never going to wait for me or Amy or their teacher to send in their application. They're always going to follow what the college wants the student to do, kind of like what you were saying. In the past, you know, and I understand sometimes students like, oh, my teacher didn't write my letter. They didn't send it in, so I can't do anything. Nope, that's not true. We're really good, all of us here, teachers, counselors, we're really good about getting stuff in on time. But, you know, I might wait until October 28th for a November 1st deadline. You know, the student might have sent things in October 1st. I'm not saying, you know, if the student wanted me to send it in earlier and requested that and gave me time, I probably could, you know, do that. But, so we're not all sending our stuff in at the same time. You're going to be home sending in your application. We're going to be at school sending our stuff. So it's just, we don't coordinate it that way. But it does get there before the deadline, if we have enough notice. Now, in the rare event, because it does happen every year, somebody will come in and either on the day of the application that it's due, or maybe the day before, and bring materials, and we're very nice, and we don't yell at anybody, but we can't guarantee something's going to be there on the deadline because of the turnaround time. I can write a letter of recommendation very quickly, but you don't want me to write a letter of recommendation really quickly. I want to take my time, really think about the person, the information that I have in front of me, and, you know, do a solid job. So I know you feel the same way. So, but, you know, like I said, well, our turnaround time is pretty decent, but but we just, just need a little time, so.
There was one year, and I don't even remember what the situation was right now, but a transcript, it took me 2 weeks to get the transcript corrected. There was some glitch in the system, and we just couldn't get it printed properly. So that's part of why we asked for 2 weeks. It's also a lot of people might be applying to college by November 1st or November 15th, and like Mrs. Murphy said, I can't write a good recommendation in 20 minutes. I actually spend hours writing them so that if I have 40 recommendations to write in a season, I've got to put in probably 40 to 60 hours writing them. So that can't all happen in one night.
Okay, where are we going next? Yep. So our email addresses are there. We do send out a fair amount of emails, so you probably are familiar with seeing our emails, but just in case, that's there as well. So, yeah, go ahead.
I get a lot of email for Kristen Knapp. She sometimes gets email from me. So for those of you who are my students, and especially if you have her for public policy, it gets very confusing. So I'm Amy Knapp, and it's Knapp A. She is Kristen Knapp, and it's Knapp K, just to try to help a little bit.
And I'm sure there's a couple Murphys out there in the district, so, but. One of the parents here asked about the yellow transcript request form. That's what that is. We're going to give this directly to students when we meet with them individually. So it's in a nice packet that we hand out. All right, what's next, Amy? Okay, and you can get it from the website, but we're going to hand them out too. So if somebody wanted to print it off the website, you're welcome to do that. It's not necessary, but if you wish to do that, that's fine.
And some students are a little bit confused about this, especially if they're applying to a SUNY school and using the SUNY application, but they're also using the common application, and we will help you fill it out too. Don't feel like it's all on your own and you have to figure it out. We just tried to make as many options there to help us be clear about what we need to do. Something that we added this year, because students were confused about this before, is that we did add a spot to include colleges that you're applying to for instant admit day, because I used to get these forms to send a transcript to Hudson Valley. We have probably 80 students apply to Hudson Valley on an instant admit day. And I'm like, didn't you apply instant admit? And they're like, yeah, I just wanted to get you the yellow form with my college on it. So we did include that this year to make it clear what's instant admit and what's not instant admit.
Mm-hmm. One of my things that I like to say a lot to students when I meet with them, and I'll tell you now, is we're not deciding on where you're going. We're deciding on where you're applying to. So there's like a lot of like, oh, I got to figure everything out. I got to know exactly this, this, and this. So you need to decide some things. You just don't have to decide everything right now. So we've got lots of time, and we can always add colleges on. So once you fill out this yellow form and you give it to me, or you give it to Mrs. Knapp and we process our stuff, it doesn't mean that's it. You can't apply to any other colleges. Of course you can. We would just either update the yellow form or maybe bring another one in. So it's basically the work is done once we've completed our part and sent it. So just adding things on is just a click of the button and forwarding more information on to those additional colleges. All right, what's next? So when a student comes in with the yellow form, there's a very important purple form that we want at the same time. And so Mrs. Knapp's going to show you. And it's in the packet that we're going to hand out, and it's called the Senior Reflection. And basically, this is, we want students to fill this out. This is additional information about them. We know a lot about them. Likely, we've had them since 9th grade, so we've gotten to know them over the years. And so, we have our stuff that we have that we can write about, but we want to hear from students, make sure we include additional information that they wish to have. There's also a parent brag sheet. So what I like to say to students is I have to have these two, because I want to hear from the student. I'm not gonna, you want me to write a letter, I got to hear from you. You got to tell me, you got to share some stuff. And then the yellow form. Parents, we're not mandating parents to fill out the brag sheet. It's always lovely. We know you're busy and there's lots going on, but if you wish, we're always, we always welcome to hear from parents it's nice because, and again, we're going to glean from these forms from students and parents. You know, I don't write every word that a parent or student shares in this information, but it's just for me. It doesn't get shared with the college other than then it's what I write about and what I include in. Sometimes I actually quote the student. If they gave me a really nice line in their senior reflection, I actually put it in a quote. So I always think that's nice too.
I like to think of it as the data to back up the statements I'm making. I feel like I have a pretty good sense of my students and who they are, and I have lots of great things to say about them, but I don't have the day-to-day interaction with them to give examples of why I think this about the student. So both the senior reflection and the parent brag sheet often give me those little anecdotes or those little pieces of information to back up why I think that they have excellent follow-through skills or why they're very kind or any number of nice things that I want to say about a student.
Yeah. Okay. So many students have taken SATs and ACTs. A lot of students may be kind of held off on it, just kind of depends. So some students took some in the spring, some are retaking them in the fall, or maybe taking them for the first time this fall. So we're in a unique time in the sense that a lot of colleges are making standardized testing optional. But for those colleges where they may require testing, that's just something that students would, you know, have to understand that they'd have to do. And I'm saying students because most of this work is done by students, but we know you're sitting right next to your, hopefully, in some cases, not the whole time, but you know, you're there to assist as well at home. So there's the two main companies. There's SAT, which is College Board. There's ACT, that actstudent.org. And so a student, if they've taken tests, those official scores will be on their accounts on those sites. And so colleges that require official scores, the student would have to log into their account and send those official scores to those colleges that require them. So some colleges don't want them or don't use them, or they're test optional, some require them. So if it's a really great score and it exceeds the typical range that the college would otherwise, you know, accept, you know, if it's above that range, that's only going to help somebody. If it's a test optional school and the student unfortunately didn't do so well on SAT or ACT, then don't send it. We only want information that's going to benefit the application, and we can take advantage of the test optional nature of what's going on right now.
It also gets a little bit tricky with the Common Application because there is a spot on the Common Application where you can enter your test scores. But once you enter them on the Common Application, they get sent to everywhere that you apply using the Common Application. So if you only want them to go to some schools and not other schools, you're not going to want to enter them on the Common Application. On the other hand, many schools will accept them off of the Common Application, and you don't have to have them sent from the testing service. Eventually you will if you commit to that school. They're going to want official scores so that they know that those are really your scores. But because there's so much mix and match, that's why we don't put them on the transcript anymore. And sometimes you're applying to school before you've even taken the test, and then we would never be sending those scores because we've already sent your transcript in. So I would say talk with us about whether you should send your scores, how to send your scores, because it's going to vary from student to student and even from college to college.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What else do we have over here? Oh, so activities resume. So in Naviance, there's that section under About Me where the student can click into their resume and they can update their resume, and that's for us, that's for the student, that's for teachers who need a resume. But this is great information to keep track of and keep up to date because there's a section on most applications, any application, college application, in addition to the Common App, where students are asked to enter their activities, their sports, clubs, work, volunteer, hobbies, you name it. Could be internship. There's a drop-down menu of up to 10 things on the Common App, and then other college applications will have a space for that. So sometimes students want me to just like read over what they wrote, you know, for their activities. I'm happy to do that, you know, kind of wordsmith it if they think we need to do that, you know. So that's an important feature, and that's what colleges are looking at.
So if we put the Common App, but not
So the question is, can Naviance and Common App, if you put the activities in Common App, can it link to Naviance? Unfortunately, it can't, and vice versa. So even though it's owned by the same company, you'd think they'd figure that out, right? No, yeah. So they're two separate things, yep. All right, where are we headed next, Amy?
So we did mention earlier that we're going to try to get transcripts run after drop ad is over. We're going to spend next week getting your unofficial transcript uploaded to Naviance. In order to apply to a college, you need to have an official transcript sent, which means we need to send it directly to the college. But in the meantime, we're going to upload an unofficial one. It will have your overall GPA on it. But we also want you to take a look at it, because if there's some kind of error, we may or may not know about it. Maybe a teacher told you that they were going to change a grade and it wasn't changed, and we have no way of knowing. So when we're cross-referencing, it looks fine to us. Or there just could be something else. We review every transcript before it leaves our office, but it helps to have another set of eyes on it. So if you do see something on this, once it gets uploaded, and we'll send out an email to let you know that it's there, because it will take a little while to get almost 400 transcripts uploaded. But if you see something that seems like an error, please reach out to one of us and let us know so we can look into it. Mm-hmm. It will have both an unweighted GPA, which is your official GPA, and a weighted GPA. We did a whole research thing a number of years back, and we decided that providing both, colleges preferred that. It gave them a little bit more context. For any place that you are indicating your GPA, it's the unweighted GPA that is your official GPA, but the weighted is there just to provide a little bit more context to the courses that you've taken and the grades that you've earned.
So when you apply to college and we do our documents, one of the things that we send along, and it's not something that we have here, but it's called the high school profile, which is a really important document for colleges, and it explains who Guilderland High School is, you know, what courses we have, you know, how many college level courses, AP courses. Oh, here we go. Very nice.
But this is last year's,
Okay,
not
so
this year's. We're still working on this year's, but.
Yeah. So it provides that kind of information, and this is what college admissions people use, because no high school is created equal in the sense we're all not doing the same thing. Some have numeric grades, some have letter grades, some have essays and statements about how their students have done. Some have, you know, no college or AP courses. We do, fortunately. So we put all of that in so colleges can use it. So when they see the transcript and they see, oh, you know, Johnny took, you know, 5 college level courses in his senior year, they'll see that because it's listed in the profile. They can compare that.
And we do have information on the profile still about the DEL, NEL thing from back when we had to shut school down suddenly in March. Most of you probably do not have the DELs, NELs, except for second semester courses from that year. So there is an explanation there. Most colleges don't really understand it, so that you might have to explain it to them if you're actually meeting with college personnel. But there is an explanation there.
We didn't talk about letters of recommendation, right? Okay. So, oh, is there a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, related to the transcripts.
Yep.
For anyone who transferred into Guilderland, would it be inclusive? Would they upload include transcripts from a career school?
So when a new student transfers into Guilderland and they came from another high school, we put that information into our transcript. So it would say, for example, say 9th grade was Saratoga High School, and it would show the courses and the grades, and it would be reflected on our transcript. So sometimes colleges actually want a transcript directly from that other high school. They actually may ask for it. So that might be, you know, something that that student and, you know, that family would have to do.
But sometimes they just think they want it. They don't realize that the classes and the grades are on our transcript, because I have called colleges because the student's application was incomplete. And when I've talked to them and said, oh, but it's all right on our transcript, they're like, oh, then they're fine. So if you end up with a question about that and it looks like your file is incomplete, let us know. We can reach out to the college, or you can reach out to the college directly and explain that it's on the transcript that we sent.
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. All right, so teachers' letters of recommendation. So a lot of students asked teachers last year, sometime in the spring. A lot of junior year teachers get asked because those are the people that are closest to this application process. So hopefully many students did that. If they didn't, don't worry, you're gonna find teachers now that you're gonna be asking. You may have a teacher this year that you had in 9th or 10th or 11th grade. That might be an ideal person to ask. So we always suggest or recommend or expect students to initially ask teachers in person. You don't want to just kind of email somebody initially. You want to, go up and ask. I know that can be tough, but most teachers are, inclined to say yes and be happy to write a letter of recommendation. So the student might need to follow up with that teacher. Maybe they asked them in the spring and that person said yes, and then they just have to reconnect with them, like, oh, in the spring you said you were going to write my letter, and that might be an email, or you might check in with that teacher after school quickly before you leave for the day.
That information actually has to get entered into Naviance, and when you enter it into Naviance, there's a place where the teacher will get an email once it gets entered, and the student can type a message in there as well.
Mm-hmm. And we help students with that. So if you're not sure about that or sounds complicated, it's very simple. But when we sit down and get together, we assist with that.
So what I have up right now is the blue teacher recommendation request form. And there's room to put down colleges that you're applying to and that you want the teacher recommendation to get sent to, but also where you don't want them to send it. You will be entering this, or the student will be entering this information into Naviance, but some teachers really rely on this blue sheet to keep themselves organized in what they have to do. And some schools, I'll use Binghamton as an example, they only accept one teacher letter of recommendation. If you've asked 2 teachers to write letters, and you may prefer that one go because it's related to what you want to major in, you're going to want to make sure that you write down, do not send on the other teacher's blue form, just to make sure that you're clear on where it gets sent and where it doesn't get sent. That should be clear in Naviance. Many years ago, it was a disaster. They've cleaned it up since then, but just in case, we like students to fill this out anyway so that the teachers are clear.
And not all teachers, I think Mrs. Knapp mentioned, use the blue form, and quite frankly, I don't really know who uses it and who doesn't, so we just give it to the student. The teacher will say, oh, get the blue form. That's what that means. If they don't, that's okay. It's not like you're missing something, so it's just more for their record keeping. So there is an essay. Typically, there's an essay portion on most college applications. There's certainly that on the Common Application. There's 6, 7 prompts that students, they would be picking one of those prompts. They would be writing their essay about that. It's not a long essay, which can be a challenge, because writing between 250 words to 650 words, sometimes it's hard to, sometimes it's easier to write more, but
Mrs. Murphy did mention we are doing a Writing the College Essay workshop before the college fair, so you might want to come check it out and hear what they have to say. We also do have other things online. Other colleges have put out things about writing the college essay that you might want to check out as well.
So we encourage students to bring their draft or their written, their essay to their English teacher, maybe the English teacher that they had last year. That's always an option too, right, Mr. Maycock? And they can do a quick read and, just kind of give you some feedback and then make any corrections as needed. And then it basically just gets copied and pasted into the Common App. There's a space there, so.
Yeah, last year students had trouble. It looks like you can link it through Google, but it wasn't working well, so it definitely worked better to copy and paste it. We have a question.
Going back to the letters of recommendation to teachers, you had mentioned that like City Binghamton only allows for one letter. How do the colleges post on their sites say like how many they are recommending, like they only want one or
Yep.
once?
So, so the question is about teacher letters of recommendation. So when we're sitting down with a student and we're saying, okay, you asked Mr. Smith for a letter of recommendation, we're going to look for the teacher's name in Naviance, and so the student will have their list of colleges, and it will actually show, oh, Binghamton only wants one. SUNY Albany doesn't want any, but they'll accept up to 3. Marist wants 2. So it'll tell us what the college wants. So if the college wants 2, then that student needs to get 2 letters of recommendation. But in the case like Amy was saying, that if a school like Binghamton only accepts one, then only one can go. So the student would pick that teacher, and that would be the teacher that has the privilege of sending their letter there, so.
Is it always just teachers, or are they encouraged to get recommendations from maybe their extracurricular coach or
Yep.
their employer?
So on the Common App, so the questions about letters of recommendation besides counselors and teachers. So there's lots of people that students come into contact with, coaches, employers, maybe somebody that they volunteered with, and a pastor, somebody at a place of worship. A student can ask for a letter of recommendation. We encourage students to ask people what is necessary. Sometimes it means something to ask an outside recommender because there's maybe some special thing that they've been involved with, and it really helps to kind of like explain and hear from that other outside recommender. There is a place on Common App where students can invite other recommenders, and they would do that and say, oh, it's my employer, and then the student would provide that person's email address. Now again, they want to make sure they ask that person first, because, then otherwise they're getting a blind, email from, hey, you're going to write a letter for this person. They want to make sure they have a heads up. So sometimes it's not necessary to have a ton of outside recommenders or anything. I'll give you an example. So Northeastern University in Boston had 90,000 applications last year, which is nuts, crazy. So if each student had an extra letter of recommendation, that's 90,000 letters. Now, we're not, that's not happening, obviously, but just to put it into context and kind of give you an idea. So I don't want to discourage somebody from asking an outside recommender, but it's not necessarily, you need a ton. It's not, it's just not necessary to have so many. But the teachers are very important, and then as you feel, as you feel like if it's needed and explains some extra information, it's helpful.
So overall, colleges are looking for students who will be successful in their environment, but they want them to graduate, which means they want them to pass their classes. So they generally prioritize the teacher recommendation, or Sienna prioritizes the counselor recommendation. They want to know overall, how is the student going to fit into their educational environment? But I think the other recommendations can shed light on a person outside of the educational environment, what they're going to be like as a community member. What I've done in the past, if a college is not accepting supplemental recommendations, like from a pastor or an employer or whatever, if the person can just write up a few sentences, I can actually include that in my letter of recommendation and say, this person works here and this is what their boss has to say about them, just in a couple of sentences. My understanding is that many college reps spend between 4 and 7 minutes with an application, which means they have to look through the whole application, read the essay, read the letters of recommendation, review the transcript, look at the profile, so that we don't want to send too much information because then they're not going to get anything out of any of it. We want to make sure that we are able to emphasize the important parts about the student.
So don't feel bad. That 4 to 7 minutes is really important. And they're going to get what they need to, because you're working really hard. So they'll understand who you are and be able to read everything. There's a question in the back.
I'm noticing that recruitment emails are encouraging, click this link for select candidate, or you can use the Common App. Is there any advantage to, like in some cases, you're waiving fee for the application, etc.?
So there's multiple, so the question is basically about other ways of applying to a college besides the Common App. So many colleges have their own application, or maybe you went on a visit and they're like, oh, here, do our application, we're gonna waive the fee. I don't know about you, but I don't wanna spend an extra $50 if I don't have to. So I think I'd do the trouble of filling out that free application. Whether it says a select application, does it make a priority over the Common App? I don't know. I don't think so, because Most colleges say students can apply in any form or fashion, but if you do get a special application where they waive the fee, I would do that. Yeah.
Some colleges have said, here is the special application, but you can use the common application. It varies from college to college. The advantage of doing the common application is that you do the bulk of the application once, so you can spend more time on it trying to make sure that it's as good as you can make it. But there are individual questions that you have to answer for each college you apply to anyway. So it kind of depends how cumbersome the other application is as to whether you might want to fill it out or not. I agree, if they waive the application only for that separate application, it's probably worth the time, because you're probably going to end up using a similar essay. You know, the hard parts about the application you should be able to duplicate on that other application. But there are some colleges, I think it's University of Chicago, they have their own essays. You can't just choose any essay, that you have to use the essays that they are writing. So sometimes students do end up writing multiple essays because they can't just use the same essay for every application.
So this might lead us into that Ferpa, but before we get there, we'll answer this question.
So with the incident middays, how much of the common app and recommendations and essays and all that is required?
So for the incident MIT, most of the bulk of those applications, students aren't usually, they're not completing the common application for the incident MIT day. It's Sienna's individual application, or College of St. Rose's individual application. Many of them are online and really don't take very long at all. I'm trying to think, which ones require the essay? Because are there some of the incident MIT schools? Sage, no, none, okay.
Sage might still require
Okay.
the essay, but I felt like last year they made the exception that if you applied instant admit, you didn't have to do the essay. But if you're interested in applying to Sage, we'll double check and find out what they're. Honestly, for the last couple of days, we've really just been trying to get schedules together. As soon as we're done with drop ad, we're going to start to put all of the rest of the information together for instant admit and that kind of thing.
Yeah, but it's not that big, huge common app that has to be done for October 27th, so it's not that. It's a shorter application, and the goal is for those colleges to meet students in 15, 20 minutes and evaluate their transcript, that's shorter application, and then give them a decision. So it's pretty favorable usually.
On the same topic, I understand the difference between early decision and early action. But with regards to the instant admit day, that's just.
It's not binding.
That's just action, that's not.
Right. So yeah, instant admit, that early application, that feedback that colleges are going to provide. There's no binding agreement. There's no requirement that if this college accepts that student, they find out, oh, great, I got accepted to College X. I can continue on with my process and apply to those other schools. So yeah, nothing binding.
You have students who say really want to go to Siena and they try to do the instant midday, they go through all of that,
Yep.
and they don't get accepted that day, then can they still go ahead and apply generally, or are they not?
So typically, during our instant admit time, if there's a case where the student is not admitted on the spot, most of the college they'll say, we're going to reevaluate at regular decision, or I want you to, take an SAT or an ACT, or get another letter of recommendation, or do some other extra thing, or wait till first quarter grades come out and then we'll evaluate them, or first quarter grades in mid-year grades. So it just kind of depends. Has anyone ever been denied admission during instant admit? I don't recall that. So usually it might be a postponement of acceptance, needing more information.
Or denial. This sort of relates to
Yeah.
another question that we often get. If I get denied early decision or early action, can I reapply for the regular deadline? And if you get denied early decision or early action, they're not going to accept you at a later time either. Some colleges, if they're not ready to accept you early, will defer you for the regular application pool so that you would have a chance to be considered later. But if you get denied, that means that for whatever reason, they don't think you're the right fit for their college, so that you need to move on to other choices. And I'm so sorry, my mouse on my computer is now not working at all, so we're just stuck here. I'm really sorry.
Oh, technology.
My question is, let's say Sienna, right? You go to instant admit, and they're like, yeah, you're in. But what are the chances you're going to get a better package from them? You know, instant admit, they're not going to throw a lot of money at you, probably. If you go through the whole process, they're going to give you more money, I would think, if you're a better student.
So at Instant Admit, the question is, if you get accepted to a school like Siena, for example, and they see, based on the information that the student has at that point, Johnny is going to be awarded the Dean's Scholarship, right, of $5,000. I don't know, I'm just making something up. But maybe Johnny takes another SAT and knocks up his score, gets his score higher, and now he's eligible for the Presidential Scholarship. So that additional information can be given to the school. They would accept that. Whether or not they would change the merit-based money that they awarded, everything's negotiable. Let's put it that way.
Typically, at Instant Admit, they give an initial offer of scholarship money, but students haven't even typically applied for financial aid at that point.
Right.
So you're not getting an official package at that point.
Yeah.
But it is true, if you want to be able to compare financial aid offers from different colleges, I think I said this before, do not apply early decision, because that takes away your opportunity to compare those financial aid packages.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. I'll attempt to explain FERPA.
Yes, we were hoping to log into the Common App and show you where the FERPA thing was, but I apologize. I'm just stuck.
So FERPA stands for Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it's a law, and we're not breaking laws here, But the reason why we're talking about it is because when a student asks a teacher for a letter of recommendation, they have to let the teacher know and the college know in advance what their intentions are. So their intentions are either to waive their right to access, which is what we recommend students to do, so not have access to anything that's been written about them, or not waive their right to access, which means they wish to have access at a later date. So of course, human nature is the way we are. We want to know what people have written about us. That's normal. But we always recommend students to waive their right. It's that process of, I've asked Mr. Smith to write me a letter, he's agreed, I've waived my right, the letter is going to be written and sent directly to the college. It doesn't come to the student typically, and then the college reads it and makes their decisions from there. When a student asks a teacher for a letter of recommendation and the teacher says yes, then there's a very good chance that they're going to have some really great things to say about the student. So does it mean that a student's not going to get accepted if they don't waive their right? No, that doesn't necessarily mean that. But it could it could put question in the mind of the admissions people who are reading the letter, like, why did Johnny need to have Mr., to read his letters of recommendation? So those letters wouldn't even be accessible to the student until they got accepted to that college. So a student could, go through that whole process of wanting, denying that access or waiving that right, rather, and maybe not eventually even getting access to it, because a lot of times colleges will just, after the admissions process, they don't keep that information. So getting back to my original recommendation, our office recommendation, we always encourage students to waive their right. So Amy has that up, and it kind of gives an idea of what it all means. So it's basically about confidentiality, and that kind of a thing. And this is something that, moving forward, beyond the college application process, students are eventually going to be asking an employer one day, hey, can you write me a letter because I'm applying to this job? It's the same kind of process. the employer's not going to send the letter to the person requesting the letter. They're going to send it directly to that new employer. Or students may be in, they're going to college, and then they're going to be applying to graduate school or medical school or law school. It's the same concept. They're going to be asking their college professors to write those letters. Same kind of a process. It's always recommended to waive your right.
So the first checkbox is actually, do we have permission to send out your record? So you have to just check that off, otherwise we can't do it. And then you get to choose whether you waive your right or I do not waive your right. And then the last checkbox is that you understand that you can't change your mind. So if you're not sure, don't fill it out and let's have a conversation about it.
And when I meet with students, I say, if you're comfortable filling this out now, we can do this now. If you want to wait and complete it at home with your parents, that's fine too. So, but it's something that would have to be done before Naviance and Common App get matched. See, we know we work a lot together, so we know what each other is thinking.
And thank you so much, Mr. Maycock, for saving me with the mouse. That really was helpful.
So that's where it is on the Common App. It's just, and once that's done for one college on the Common App, there's a nice green check, and at any other college that's on the Common App, it doesn't have to keep being redone by the student. It's just done once, and then you move forward.
And I'm just showing you where the individual questions are for the colleges, just so you know. Again, we'll sit down with students and help them work through this. We need them to do most of the work themselves, but if they have questions, that's what we're here for, is to try to help out with that. The education section in particular, I really like to do with my students because it's confusing. And last year I had students who were just so excited to send in their applications. They did the best that they could and sent it in. And they were confused about what courses they were supposed to put down, and they didn't do it right. So I would really request that you not submit anything until we've met and had a chance to go over this together.
All right. So financial aid forms. So on the website, there are the links that are there. It's written here on the handout that we gave. So the FAFSA is free application for federal student aid. So back in the day when my family was going through it, it was same letters, FAFSA, free application for federal student aid, with the emphasis on free. So you're not paying for the FAFSA. So if you happen to get onto a site, because there are sites that actually are very similar to this site, it's not the .gov, it might be the .org or the .com, they're going to charge you, so you don't want to do that. So you want to make sure you get the right website. But it is a free application, and all colleges require the FAFSA, and this is only for families that are filling it out. If you're not feeling like you need to fill out a financial aid form, then you don't have to do that. We do recommend families filling it out, even if they think they might not qualify, because each college has what's called their own institutional aid, and they can decide how they give it to students. And even if the family doesn't qualify for financial aid, the college might itself decide, we're going to give X amount of money to student because they filled out the FAFSA. If it's not filled out, then they wouldn't otherwise gift or grant that money.
Yeah, there are generally two different kinds of aid, need-based aid and merit-based aid. And need-based aid, the only way that they know that you have need is when you fill out the FAFSA. But even for merit-based aid, some colleges just require that they have a FAFSA on file in order to award that merit scholarship. And the merit scholarship is just because they want you to come.
So, yeah.
I heard, is it true that if you don't file for your FAFSA, even if you don't need it before a certain deadline for freshman year of college begins, that it's too late almost?
So there's not, I don't know that they have an official deadline, but they have a recommended time when they want you to file it. And it's basically, it's X amount of dollars gets sent to each college. And so as applications are coming in, awards are going out. And so the later that somebody fills out their FAFSA, there might not be any money left for them to award. So that's an example. And some colleges might say you have to have it done by, I don't know, March or
Yeah, colleges do have specific deadlines, and if you're applying early action or early decision, those deadlines are much earlier because they want to give you a financial aid package close to the time that they're offering you admission. So please pay attention to those deadlines. I have not heard of someone who missed the deadline and then couldn't apply for aid, but I have heard of people where there was no aid left to give because they missed the deadline. You'll be able to start filling out forms October 1st. I'm not saying that you have to fill it out on October 1st, but you should probably become familiar with the form. If you go to the website right now, the correct form is not there. Please do not start filling out the form that you can fill out now for Fafsa, because that is for students who are in college this academic school year. After October 1st, both forms will be available, so just make sure you choose the right one. And I would say start filling it out early. There's a lot of documentation that you have to gather, and New York State actually has a help fill out the FAFSA form, online help that you can also access. I think I have to pull up we spent a lot of time working on the financial aid document that will be part of the packet that we give to students. It is posted on the website. I think that there may even be a link for that help website on there too, but I have to pull it up and look.
So the other form is the CSS profile, which is there. It's on that white sheet there. So that's, some colleges require the CSS profile, so not all of them do. And there is a processing fee, or what is it called, like some kind of fee that they charge, which is an oxymoron because you're looking for financial aid. But anyway, so that's through the College Board website because they're processing that information and they're sending out to the colleges that require it. So there is a fee for the CSS profile, but if a college requires the profile and you're seeking financial aid, then you would have to do both. Yeah.
Under the FAFSA form, it says apply for FSAID. If I did that for my first child, is that unique for that child, or do I have to apply for a second one for my second child?
So the FSA ID is individual for each child. Yeah.
The child's FSA ID is individual for each child. The parent FSA ID is the same, because the FSA ID is basically your identity or your child's identity for the FAFSA form, so that you're still the same person you were when your older child applied, although they may have changed, depending upon how long ago we're looking, they might have changed the system, but if it's been within the last few years, your FSA ID is the same. You can apply for your FSA ID now. I thought the link was right on the FAFSA website, and I don't see it, so I think that they changed that website. We will find it, and I'll put a link in the financial aid form.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, so if you have twins, there's two that you'd have to do, two FAFSAs. And it's one parent. If there's two parents in the home, there's one parent that is the designated FAFSA parent. If there's two parents but two different homes, then still it's one parent.
I don't know if anybody was paying attention where I went, but I did have to click on what to expect, and it took me to the page where you can click on the link to get your FSA ID.
So that's something you can get in advance.
Yes, and you do need that typically in advance, although I have seen it happen almost instantaneously for people, but you're better off to get that ahead of time so that you're ready to go.
On October 1st.
Oh, and if you already have someone in college, there are sections of it that you can transfer to the second child's FAFSA application. But you have to indicate that somewhere in there. And as you're filling out the FAFSA, and this is, I don't know why we're talking about this right now, because we're going to dedicate a whole night to this, but as you're filling out the FAFSA, there is a part where you indicate what state you're applying to college in or what state you live in. That's actually the easiest way to apply for TAP, which is a New York State specific financial aid source.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So one of the things that's in the packet that we'll hand out to students that you don't have now, and it's totally fine, is the admissions information. It's a SUNY summary report, and they provide this every year. It's very helpful. And again, this is only the SUNY system, so it's the university centers, which are at the top. There are some colleges of Cornell that are part of the SUNY system that's on there. There's some graduate ones, so you're not, that wouldn't necessarily be appropriate for seniors in high school. And then university colleges, you can see there, and then College of Technology on the bottom. And basically what this is, it's just it's the numbers, how many students attend each of these colleges. What's the grade point average range of what they're primarily looking at when they accept a student? What's the SAT range? What's the ACT range? The SUNY system is making SATs and SATs optional this year, but they still provide the range just to give you an idea. So if your child has taken the SAT, ACT, and is in the range or exceeds the range, well, that's good information for them to know. I would encourage them to share that with the college. On the back of that page is information about sports. So D1 for the university centers, D3 for the colleges. And then the other form that we have is the community colleges of New York State, which all of the community colleges, quite a few of them, are part of the SUNY system. And many students, we have, between 20 and 25% of each class probably starts out at a two-year college. Most of them are local two-year community colleges, Hudson Valley and SCC, and then from there, there's other ones that students will apply to. Oftentimes, they start there with the plan of transferring on to a four-year school. This is a great option for a lot of students and families. You can save a lot of money. If you're not really ready to go away, stay at home and go to a community college, a local one. A lot of them have housing for those two-year community colleges in other parts of the state. So if the student did want to go away, they could do that. They could either live on campus at a community college, or they could live local housing that is nearby. So it can be a really nice option for some students.
And this one has the sports on the back too.
Oh, right. Yep. And that's actually very, people kind of, some of our athletes realize that, that can be a really nice option for them as participating in sports at a community college level. And, from there, they could get picked up and be accepted to, recruited to a D1 or a D2 school. Sometimes that does happen. So. And then we provide a checklist for, I just said it and you got it? Wow, that's good. We provide a checklist. It's really for student use and parent use, just to kind of help you keep organized. Not everybody's going to go on an interview, audition, or have an art portfolio. Some of you will. So it depends on really what you're planning on for study at college. So if you do need those things, those are kind of like extra things. So you want to make sure you account for that when you're applying to college. There's usually an additional deadline for the portfolio or scheduling an audition. Those are things that students would have to do. Not a lot of colleges provide interviews. Sometimes the smaller four-year colleges will do that. So if they do and they offer an interview, it's nice. And I think with virtual now, anybody can really interview at any time if they provide that. It's a nice way for a student to introduce themselves, because otherwise, they're 5 to 10 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, Amy, they're looking at the college application.
Some spend a little bit more time, but yeah.
But, it's nice to, they're always going to read the application and get that, but if there's an opportunity for an interview, that's additional way for the college admissions person to really get to know the student. So that could
Even
be something.
Go ahead. Even talking to somebody at the college fair can make an impression. Mm-hmm. At the college fair, I don't know if you guys have been to one yet, but you can fill out the card so that they know that you had contact. And there's a good chance that the person you meet at the college fair is going to be the person who's reading your application. Most colleges are doing 2 reads right now, but at least one of those people may be somebody who you've met and you have had contact with, and you can leave a positive impression. So I would take advantage of whatever opportunities you can to talk with people, because it makes you more of a real person to them instead of just an application.
And we did have a lot of SUNY focused things on our website. We're not pushing SUNY. SUNY provides this information, so we find it helpful. We want parents and students to use it. And I'm just going to SUNY also sends out a catalog with a little blurb of each of their colleges. Again, it's very helpful. It's also on their website. You know, and you can get this same type of information really about any college. If you go to their website, they're going to have same information and data about admissions information and majors and all of that.
SUNY does have a very cool search option on their website. If you go to SUNY.edu. Sorry, the websites keep changing and I'm showing my age right now. But you can put in what your major is and they'll show you all the schools that offer something that's either that exact major or something related, and then you can click on the link and it'll take you to that college so you can get more information. So even though, like, I'm still like a paper or pencil person, but there's so much information that you can access easily by clicking on links. And that's why we didn't want to hand out the packet tonight. We wanted you to see where everything was online so that you could access and go to all of those links more easily. So I'm not sending you home with a homework assignment that you have to do it tonight, but just know it's there. We will give the students a paper packet to bring home so that they will have something paper to refer to, but there's just so much information that's easily accessible. We want you to know how to do it.
So I'm making this statement not because I'm encouraging this.
Oh.
But tomorrow's add drop is we're done with add drop, so that's adding a class, dropping a class. If it's a full year class, it ends tomorrow. If it's a half year class for this first semester, it ends tomorrow. If it's a second semester class, then we can deal with that second semester. So I'm not announcing this because I want students to drop things. I'm actually announcing it to say, you're in your senior year. This is very important. Colleges are paying very close attention to what are you taking and how are you doing, and not just first quarter and not just second quarter. We're looking at the whole year. I've had students in the past who've received a letter from the college that accepted them, and they started out on probation because they really fooled around in their senior year. None of you are ever going to do that. I know that. I can just tell. You guys are good, solid people out here, good students, but it doesn't happen often, but it does. So nobody wants to start college on probation. That would be just not good.
I had a student once who was taking 2 English courses. One of them was an elective. She didn't pass it because she was spending time on the other English course, and the college told her that if she didn't make up that course, that she wasn't allowed to come. We had to create a course for her in summer school so that she could take it, so that she could go to college in the fall. So colleges are able to be very selective now, and they can withdraw their offers of admission. They've got waiting lists and with other people who they would be happy to take. So you do need to put your best foot forward this year, the whole year.
No pressure. Any other questions?
Okay.
Anybody else?
Again, we have covered so much information tonight, and we do this all the time. Things change. We were just talking about the Common Application. There's a section where you can put in if you've gotten college credit in high school. Great, but do you do that? The Common Application used to say no, it's only if you've taken the course on a campus. Now they're saying yes, any courses that you've taken for college credit, you should put down here. But then the college that you apply to may be looking for a transcript from that college also. So it creates all kinds of complicated things. So that's why we want to work with you on this process. We're not giving you this information to say, okay, go apply to college, let me know when you get in. It's to give you information to get started. And then we're here as a resource, via email, via phone. We're going to sit down with our seniors. I make a joke every year, but it's so true, because it happens to me every year. My seniors, I see them all the time. We have this one big meeting, but then they stop in for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, once a week, once every other week, every day, whatever it is. And then second semester, I see them in the hall, and I'm like, you still go to school here? Because I saw them so much in the fall, and then the spring they're done with that whole thing and they don't come to see me anymore. And so I sort of forgot that they haven't gone to college yet. So don't be afraid to ask questions, stop in. That's what I'm here for.
And always remember, you're entitled to change your mind. Don't feel like if you've decided something today, it's something that you have to do. We change our mind all the time, so that's okay. Sometimes people decide much later in the school year to switch gears and do something else. We can work with you, that's okay. So, well, thank you. This is nice to be in person. We appreciate your time, and you'll be hearing from us. Yes, and if you have your evaluation, if you don't mind filling it out, that would be great. Where do we want it, Mrs. Knapp?
So I moved the cart toward the stairs in the back, so if you don't mind just leaving it on top of there, we'll gather it at the end. Thank you so much. We tried to make the evaluation quick so that you could just get through it. And we're still here so that if you have questions, you can come up and ask us.
All right.
We'll
Take
turn off
care.
the mics.